How's it going, everybody? This is Dailies to Downloads. My name is Chad. With me is Eric. We are back with you this week, hopefully back to a consistent schedule. Right, Eric?
What is it? Have we passed Memorial Day yet? Or where? I couldn't even tell you where we are.
It's almost Christmas.
It's almost Christmas. Oh, God, I gotta get something.
Well, this week we decided it might be a little old, but we decided we would come at you with a review of The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. I'm sorry, The Conjuring, as Eric pointed out before we got on, The Devil Made Me Do It.
Not The Conjuring 3.
It could also be known as Conjuring 3, according to Wikipedia. But
right. But then if you respect the Conjuring universe, it's The Conjuring, what, 9, 8? Depending on I don't know.
So this movie was originally slated for a September 2020 release, but the film was obviously delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so Warner Brothers and New Line Cinema decided to release it on June 4th, 2021, where it also had a simultaneous month-long release on HBO Max. And recently it has gone off of HBO Max. So in a way, I guess it's fitting to look at it now as it's gone through that journey. It grossed 173 million on a budget of 39 million, and it did receive mixed reviews from critics. It was directed by Michael Chavez, and the screenplay was by David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick, which is a long name.
I mean, it's nothing like the guy. What was the Saw one? Goldfinger.
Yeah.
Goldfinger,
yeah. And the story is by James Wan and David Leslie Johnson McGoldrick. I'm never saying that gentleman's name again. But so Michael Chavez, much like the Saw franchise would do, had directed in 2019 The Curse of La Llorona. You got to roll the L's, Eric. I don't know if you do that when you're talking.
La Llorona. It's like La Llorona.
Llorona. Yeah. I'm getting better at it. But anyway, yes, that is where he comes from in this regard. James Wan is still on board, but he's not directing it. And in my opinion, the change is noticeable. The Curse of La Llorona is not a very good movie. But Linda Cardellini notwithstanding, because she can't do anything bad. But the movie itself is not anything to write home about. So, Eric, where did you watch it? Did you watch this on HBO Max, or did you go to see it in theaters?
So I wound up seeing it in theaters, and the reason that is because I've reactivated my AMC, monthly stub this passing. You can see like 3 movies a week. So I just reactivated that after obviously pausing it due to things not being open for over a year. And I first earlier, this was on, I'm sorry, I don't even remember what day I saw it. Saturday, I want to say. But first I saw the latest Purge movie. And then I came out and it was pouring rain, as has been happening a lot these past few days. And so I said, you know what? Screw this. I think I'm going to go back inside and I'm going to see something else. And and not that I didn't want to eventually see The Conjuring, the latest film, but I wound up, that was the next thing starting within 10 minutes. And so I went and saw that. So it was part of a double horror sequel day. And just like The Conjuring and Saw franchise, the latest Purge was also directed by somebody who's kind of risen up through the ranks to direct his first feature, because he's worked on the other films, which, as we talked about last time with the Saw films, is sort of a mixed bag when you go through that system, in my opinion.
Right. Well, yeah, I watched this one on HBO Max. I love the deal they worked out there, and I need to watch In the Heights. That's about to leave as well. But I should have added that the subtitle, The Devil Made Me Do It, is based on a murder trial that took place in 1981 in Connecticut. And it is loosely, a vague plot description would be the Warrens investigate a murder that may be linked to demonic possession, as IMDb would say. But obviously this is based on something that actually happened, although it's not the first film to be made about this particular case. There's also a movie from 1983 called The Demon Murder Case, which is like really
Wow.
no creative people in that room.
Wow.
um,
And then there was the movie, I guess not connected, called The Haunting in Connecticut, but I don't think that had anything to do
oh
with
yeah, yeah, yeah.
that case. But I guess
You know what?
Connecticut,
Honestly, it's tough to keep track of all the haunting movies that were released there for a period of time.
yes, all the ones that took place in Connecticut, mind you. It is. Move.
So, before we get to what we think of this movie, I'll just say that I saw the first Conjuring pretty much around the time it came out. I saw that one in theaters. I actually didn't see The Conjuring 2 until this year. I had bought the digital code a long time ago, didn't watch it until recently. But I like both of those movies. In terms of haunted house movies, which I think are not easy to pull off, if you look back in the history of film, like there's a lot that have a lot of problems. But I thought that the first two Conjuring movies were good for what they were. They were, you know, creepy when they needed to be. They were kind of, haunted house zany at times as well. But I liked the characters, the Warrens. I like Vera Farmiga and Patrick Wilson in these roles. And so I like those first two movies, and I was looking forward to this one because they had, I guess, made it clear, the powers that be, James Wan and his crew had made it clear they wanted to get away from the haunted house approach and do something a little different. And I think that that was a cool idea in theory, but the way it was executed, I think, left a little bit to be desired. But Eric, what do you think about the first two movies? Were you fans of theirs, or have you not been a fan of this franchise at all?
I liked the first one especially. The first one I remember when that came out, that actually felt like a return to, like you said, like we haven't really gotten a good haunted house ghost like film in a while, and like a real like studio movie. So I enjoyed the first one. The second one I actually don't recall even that much about, or like I know it's in London, and I remember the whole thing with the child and everything. But it was refreshing for the first one, and at the time I didn't think that this was going to be like a franchise. It felt like it worked as its own thing, and after James Wan came back to direct the second one, I feel like that's what he does. He directs the first Saw, and then he kind of left, but kind of still was creatively involved. And then he directed the first two Insidious movies, and then left and was creatively involved. Then he directed the first two Conjurings, same sort of thing. But yes, I did not think that the first one I liked a lot. Lily Taylor, I thought she, particularly because of her in it as well, and the whole thing in the basement and the clapping, and like there's certain great scares in there that are I don't necessarily hate like the jump scare stuff, but it's used sparingly, and when they do use it in the first one, in my opinion, like it's used well. And if you use it sparingly, then I think it's good. If you use it
Well,
in
it's
every
like, yeah,
scene,
it's
you lose.
it's like anything else. It's how it's just what you said. It's how it's used. It's like, bathroom humor. Some movies use it as a crutch, or they use it in a way where it says they don't have anything else creative to throw at the audience. But other times it could be used in a really funny way, like Dumb and Dumber, for example. But yeah, no, I agree. Like the jump scares in the first one are used sparingly, but where they are used, it works. It's effective. It's when you get manipulative and it's just there for an audience reaction that I tend to get annoyed. But yeah.
And that's why I felt, yeah, watching, I won't go too far into the new one, but watching the new one, like it was like the first time I'd seen a horror film in theaters, again for the first time in over a year, and I forgot how when you don't have control over how loud the sound is in a theater, like those jump scare things really annoy the hell out of me. And then like, and they're coming because they indicate them, and then I'm like almost like putting my hand over my ear because I don't want, like I just, it was so overused in the latest one. Whereas at home, I can lower it a little bit. It doesn't have the same like I'm gonna jump out of my chair because a rat jumped out of a cereal box sort of effect.
In terms of this one, I would certainly say that this is the weakest installment of this trilogy. Now, is it the weakest installment of the whole Conjuring universe? I don't know. I have not seen every movie on in this franchise. But I think that what made the first two enjoyable, they certainly went away from, and I understand why they went away from it. The plot is intriguing enough, I think, but my biggest issue was that with this was the fact that the Warrens' abilities now have become akin to superheroes, and I thought that was ridiculous. Like in terms of Lorraine Warren specifically, and how the visions that she has, and how she's able to do these different things to help solve the cases. It was just very, very over the top and a little bit difficult to swallow for me.
Yeah, it almost like because I really did not like this one at all, and it really makes me think more so with the other ones because I felt like yes, they are like the leads of the other two films, but I don't know. This one felt very much about them more so,
Yeah.
where they were really the leads, and like we have to learn all about their marriage and their love and how they met each other. It's like what and yeah, with the superpowers, they kind of whatever you want to call it. Um, it really made me walk away saying, okay, so these people are a bunch of like frauds, like, so, which I don't think is what the movie wants you to think,
Well,
but
no,
like,
because Lorraine Warren, up until she died, was a consultant.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
in
yeah,
these
right. But
movies.
like after enough of these stories and this one especially, I'm like, okay, it sounds like they were completely full of shit. Um, and my biggest, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, when you look into the actual facts of these, see, I suspend disbelief when I watch these movies. I just throw myself into a horror movie frame of mind. But when you take yourself out of that and you look up actual facts about these people and some of the controversies and what they could prove, what they couldn't prove, then that sort of vision and that ceiling or that window really starts to come down, because it there was a lot of controversy surrounding the Warrens. There really, really was.
yeah. And I think for me the biggest thing too, which is getting away from the haunted house kind of aspect, which is almost if not foolproof, like, can I actually say whether the Amityville horror did the ghost actually? I wasn't there, you weren't there, blah blah blah. They are actually saying, I want who I want to hear from is the family of the guy who was murdered in this case.
Right.
To see a movie that says it's just nice Arnie who was a soldier who self-sacrificed to get the demon into him from a little boy, and
Right.
the demon made him kill this guy. I want to hear from the family of the guy who died, who was murdered, and see how they feel about this puff piece about this dude who had an attractive girlfriend and they loved each other through and through, and only got 5 years in prison, and I was just like, this feels very gross, and again made me feel less about the Warrens and less about the movie. Does say the devil made him do it,
Right.
and if you're going to do that with real life stuff, like, are we going to do this with OJ next? Like, who are we going to do this with?
There was never any question in this movie. They never left anything to be a mystery. It was
No.
definitely, well, we know the devil made this guy do it.
Yep.
He's innocent. So on.
It opens up with him sacrificing himself to get the demon out of a little boy.
Right.
Which I think is also what Pee Wee Herman used as an excuse. No, but like it's so it's so he becomes the devil inside of him that causes him to murder one person, and that's it. And yeah,
It does kind of like make you look at these people differently and look at the entire universe that they've created in a different way. It's like, well, if you're trying to be realistic here and you're involving the law.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And like real people. That's why I think you could get away with it in the haunted house genre.
Right.
Once you're doing real murders, uh, I well, I just think that opens up a whole new can of worms. And yeah, I try to suspend my disbelief in terms of based on a true story thing as well. But I spoke to another friend who had seen it recently, and he's like, "Well, I assume most of the things would be accurate." I'm like, you should definitely not assume. I'm like, is there a demonic witch daughter of the priest? Is that a real person? Are those real things? Like,
Right.
what is fact? Not that I would normally care, but the movie also wants to have its cake and eat it too. By the way, it always does the opening credit scrawl with the text in the typewriter font, which makes you think this is a serious movie, you know, and it ends that way always with the archival footage and blah blah blah. So it definitely wants to be taken as a serious approach, but I
Yes.
think that all falls apart with this one, definitely.
Yeah, and yeah, you got to really be careful when like people when they watch these movies if they think that everything happened exactly this way. It's it makes me like really appreciate unsolved mysteries more.
Yeah, and I didn't
But
read too much.
they presented those things in a way that it was like, well, this is what some people believe, but we don't know if it's true or not.
Yeah, and I didn't look into that there's a elderly man who's a priest or a former priest or whatever he is, and spoiler, he has a daughter who's into witchcraft, as all priests who happen to have children are into witchcraft somehow. That's a terrible. I guess that's real to spite their dad, but and that's the reason why all this stuff is sort of happening, I guess.
Yeah, well,
Did they make all that up just to like show that Arnie's innocent young man? Like,
I'm
what?
sure they connected certain dots that weren't connected to make the plot more cohesive. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought him up though, because although the characters and the way everything was supposed to be joined and given a nice tidy bow was annoying. I did love the fact that it was John Noble, who doesn't act
Yeah,
enough, and I was a huge fan of Fringe, so I'm sure he's worked since then, but I have not seen him in much since then. So at first, I really didn't know who that was when they went to see him, and I was, once the voice starts, I was like, oh my gosh, that's John Noble, and wow, he's gotten a lot older, obviously, but he's still got the same sense of humor in his characters that he had on Fringe. That has not changed, which I thought was interesting. So, uh,
I actually did not place. He looked familiar to me, and that voice is. But I've never seen Fringe. I'm actually trying to think of what I would have known him from.
probably not much. Like
He just
he
looks
does,
or sounds like someone I would, you know.
yeah, he is in other stuff, but I think that there's always so many other older actors that are probably competing for the same roles or just automatically given the roles that he would be shooting for that he just or maybe he just doesn't want to act a lot. Who knows?
Yeah.
But anyway, from an acting standpoint, I thought the movie was okay. I didn't really have a problem with the performances. I just had a problem with the screenplay. Really, that was my biggest issue with it. And I will say about Michael Chavez's direction, I don't think he had the control nor the sense of subtlety that James Wan did. You can tell that the same sort of approach is not really given here, despite the fact that it's a different plot. So, what did you think about him as a director? I don't know if you saw The Curse of La
I
Llorona.
did. I did see. I couldn't recall too much about it. Oh well, one thing
Yeah,
I've seen, like, I think I've seen most of them.
yeah,
And this kind of goes to like a larger point about this. Something I absolutely hate, the Marvelification of films now. That we have a Conjuring universe. I cannot think of three words, if we include the, that should not be together. The Conjuring universe. Like, what it's become now is obviously an episodic thing where it's the crazy Warrens back room collection of items, right?
right.
And it's just like, this week's episode is
It
that
reminds me of
sword.
Friday the 13th, the TV
The
series.
TV series, yeah, it's exactly like that. It's exactly like that with a higher budget, a lot higher budget, but it's that exact same thing. And so these films always have the exact same formula, and it always ends with them, collecting the item and placing it into into that back room as if to like imply it's
Always,
over.
always near Annabelle.
Always near Annabelle.
She's
Always
she's
near
got to
Annabelle.
appear even if there's no reason for her to be there.
Yes, and Annabelle also is like, she's not like a. I always so disappointed that I thought she was like a Chucky kind of thing, but she's not alive. It's just like it goes spirits through her, so even she feels like a waste. It just sells a lot of shirts at Hot Topic, but like whatever. Yeah. Anyway, it all goes to that same formula. So the direction on that front, I think it really leans into the jump scares, and some of which I feel like the Conjuring universe has tried to stay away from. But what I do like is that these are all period pieces, and so
Right.
you do get some nice, what do they call it, needle drops, and there is an attention to detail on some of the, you said it's like 1981, so I do appreciate those little touches. in terms of the production design. And the Crystal Iona, I think, was in like the late 70s, and that had like a sort of detective
1973.
73.
Yeah,
Okay.
close enough.
Um, so I do appreciate that with this one, the like the cereal boxes and the cars and the stereos and there is a nice shot I thought when Arnie is in the I want to say pet shop. What would you call it? Dog sanctuary with
Yeah, something like that.
volunteer animal. But yeah, where he thinks he's being chased by the devil, and like everything goes red and like the music slows down to a crawl, which was like a nice stylistic flourish, I thought. But definitely feels like a somewhat cheap um imitation, I guess, of what. And I don't blame him because I'm sure that's exactly what he's told to do, and that's exactly
Right.
why he was hired. But I just thought that was, and it's tough too because I thought the things with Arnie in the um, asylum, if you will, was so incredibly boring.
Yeah.
He's just laying there convulsing, and there's a priest who slips him not a 40 but a bottle of holy water, and like and then he convulses some more, and the girlfriend's chilling out there, and it is so dull. And they keep going back to it because that's the reason they came up with the story. But then they get as far away from it as they possibly can, where the real story is Vera Farmiga in a basement. It
Yeah.
becomes that, and so that also I think drags it down to like almost 2 hour runtime. That does not need to be.
No, it didn't need to be that long. I agree. And certain things were just telegraphed, like the parts about the relationship. You knew were going to come back. Where Lorraine keeps arguing with her husband about going into situations alone, and like you knew that all of these things were going to come back. It would have been gutsy if they had incorporated more of the case. If this would have been more of a departure from horror altogether, I think that would have been an interesting approach to do. Would it have been more interesting? Who knows? But it would have been another avenue to take. Fans of these movies were apprehensive about the fact that James Wan was not returning as the director, and as a result, you can see a decline in the movies, which I guess is inevitable in franchises. They're not all going to be equally as great, but I don't know where they go from here, because from here, you might as well give the Warrens costumes.
Yeah. I just, and I feel like it was a real missed opportunity to not actually include more of the actual trial. We don't really see
Right,
any.
which is in the trivia if people try to look it up. There's a lot that they didn't go into in this because they wanted to focus on, like you were saying earlier, on the Warrens and on the fact that, well, this guy's innocent, period.
Yeah, and that it's obvious. Yeah, and yeah, the Warren stuff. Don't mind. They have good chemistry as actors, but I'm not interested really. Like, they're a pretty vanilla couple. This one also brings in. We didn't mention the that Patrick Wilson's character has a bad heart. He's got a weak heart.
Right.
And of course, that becomes a plot point because you see it coming from 20 miles away.
Yeah.
And so, but that also, don't worry, is solved because they love each other, and she remembers to tell her husband to take his medicine. And so, like, it's like, come on. It's like, yes, we like these characters, but now we like these characters, and you're really pushing that hard.
It just feels like they like had a lack of passion with this one, and it's not just because the director is different. It just feels like a lot less effort went into making this one really intriguing, and
Yeah. And it's definitely, yeah, the Conjuring official movies, the three, were I feel like supposed to be the ones that are the most taken care of,
right.
and then you have the side ones about, oh, do you remember the nun that you saw for 5 seconds? Here's a 2 hour movie about the nun, and here's uh the three Annabelle movies and blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, but the Conjuring one's supposed to recenter the narrative and kind of
Right.
begin anew, and now this one just feels like any of the other ones to me. So it's like, where does it go from here? You could do 100 of these, and I think it's going to have more and more diminishing results. Like, what Jeffrey Dahmer are you going to do next, and say he was possessed by the chupacabra? Like I don't know.
Hey, You know what? I would totally watch that. I really would.
They can do it. Why not? Who's to say? Who's to say? You know, you can't prove it wasn't. You know, so
So I'm on Letterboxd as well, and I was reviewing this, and I liked what one person said when they equated the Warrens to this series as Robert Langdon is to the Dan Brown adaptations, which is very very true. Although Robert Langdon is a fictional character, and
yeah,
the Warrens were real, but that's
yeah,
kind of what they become, and that's not really the comparison you want. Although I like the Robert Langdon movies, but that's not really the comparison you want because it's fiction versus what's supposed to be
yeah.
based
But
in.
you're right. Yeah, they have become almost like the detectives who we hold. Even in the non-Conjuring side movies, they always like bookend it, open and close it with Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga. So I'm sure they get a nice kickback check for doing 3 minutes of work at the end and beginning of each of these movies to kind of link them all together. But yeah, it definitely now with this one makes me think that they were just opportunistic. So a murderer say that the devil made me do it, and then they tried to get some cash out of it, but that never is really addressed either.
Right.
I, don't know. I would like to see more of their actual interviews. The movie concludes with like our actual archival footage
Yeah.
of the real Warrens. Not that I think now I think they're a bunch of hucksters, but it still seems somewhat interesting to me at the end of the movie.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I mean. It- they I like it when the movies, whether regardless of these or any movies, if you limit it to photographs, because if you open it up to more than just photographs, if you incorporate actual archival footage, then you really need to be careful as to how you portrayed the events and how you portrayed the people, because then you start to compare instantly. Okay, what was real, what wasn't, what was Hollywood, what wasn't, and that's a problem in this case. I mean, because if you've seen the actual Annabelle, she doesn't look like the Annabelle in the movies, like not even a little bit. But
Yeah, that's a good point because this movie concludes with using archival photos up against the image of the scene from the movie.
right,
Like here's Arnie getting out of the prison truck handcuffed, and he's standing just like the real Arnie did. I'm like, okay, well, wow, incredible.
must be 100% fact.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, all right. There's his girlfriend who has this big funky hat, and that's the same hat she was wearing. Like, wow, what do you freaking do? Like, okay, well, I believe it now. I'm totally on board.
So, what do you think, Eric? Do you think that this movie would have made more money had it been released in a regular way without
Yeah,
the pandemic?
I think for all those HBO Max movies, they have to come with that asterisk, especially since they, unlike Disney Plus and I know Paramount Plus is going to be doing this as well. They don't come with an extra fee.
Right.
So I definitely think people have been talking a lot about In the Heights did not do as well financially at the box office as other movies. But it's like, yeah, when you can also just pay $15 to have HBO Max for a month, if you so
Right.
wish, or a free trial, I imagine you could do. Of course, most people would take that option.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so I definitely think it did. Yeah. But only HBO Max knows those streaming numbers. It'll be interesting for something like Black Widow, which is coming out, where you can watch it on Disney Plus for $30. That seems like a significant price, but who knows?
Yeah, and you know what? I will be totally honest. I'll probably be paying that, and it'll probably be other people invited over, like family
yeah,
members and such that want to watch it, and or
and
even
then
an
you
adult.
can
Like,
FaceTime me and just like put the phone up to the
right,
screen. I'll watch it through that.
absolutely, we'll give you a profile on our account.
Yes,
Um,
yes, yes. Thank you.
so because it'll pay for itself in that way, and I mean, if all five of my family members, including myself, are watching it, then it pays for itself right away.
But will
Twenty
you
nine
do that?
ninety nine is a steep price, but
Will you do that for Jungle Cruise?
probably not. Probably not.
Just saying. They're.
Although Paul Giamatti's in it, so that
Yeah.
might put me over the edge. Yeah, there was a
Is
character
he an
poster.
animal, or is he?
I'll put that up in our video. A character
Okay.
poster of Paul Giamatti. But if it gets like rave reviews, then I don't know. I could be convinced. But
Yeah. But yeah, it'll definitely be interesting. I haven't seen the latest Pixar one, which was funny enough released for
For
quote
free.
unquote free
Yeah.
on Disney Plus. So
Yeah, we're right in the middle of that one.
yeah, I think HBO Max will, after the 2021 year is over, they will not continue this because I think, as we spoke about in the past, it's pissed off so many filmmakers, this decision,
Yeah.
that I think they're gonna not do that. But
I don't think that this like a simultaneous release thing will start. I do think that the window from theaters to streaming has been forever changed, by these situations though. And I think I just read, what was it, Universal and somebody else, no more than 4 months between, the release of movies in theater to streaming services. So,
yeah,
which
good
is
show.
But yeah, so let us know what you think of The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It. You
Let
have to
us
say
know
it.
if you've
Yeah.
ever blamed anything on the devil, and if you were successful in your accusation.
And you know what? Even if you've never seen these movies, if your name is Arnie, please go ahead and comment on our video, because what an
Yes,
interesting name to have.
that's true. Yes, this movie proves that if you just say the devil made me do it, yes, you may get 5 years for murder, but I mean that's still not terrible. And your girlfriend can visit you every day apparently.
And
So
Warrens will have believed you.
the warrant, yes, they're no longer with us, but just know that they would have totally bought your BS.
All right. Well, please check us out on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. If you'd rather listen to us, give us a 5-star review there. And for Eric, my name is Chad, and we will see you next week.